in the experiment and actually obtained a time constant of 154 femtosecond, which fits almost perfectly to experiment. And then this shows that these experiments do not really observe intersystem crossing directly, but they observe the decay from brighter states to darker states, which is kind of related to intersystem crossing, but not the same thing. So yeah, this can be summarized. We have this untypical two-step intersystem crossing mechanism, and this experiment, which doesn't measure intersystem crossing, but the transition from brighter to darker states. Here, the two main SHARC features that we were using was this ultra-fast intersystem crossing that is directly built into the SHARC method, and on the other hand, the possibility to simulate time-dependent spectra. The second example, which is a polyadenine strand, this is about DNA photodamage. So when light is shined on DNA, then one or more of the nucleobases that encode the genes can be excited. And when multiple of these nucleobases are excited, then one can form different kinds of charge transfer in excitonic states that can be very nicely analyzed by the Theodore package that was presented earlier. And this can also be quantified. So in this project, we went on to simulate SHARC dynamics of this DNA strand in water, and we extracted the population dynamics in terms of these different classes of excited states based on the Theodore analysis. And then we used the population kinetics functionalities of SHARC to derive such a kinetic model that indeed agrees quite well to recent experimental evidence. And this, yeah, what was seen was actually that initially one populates through absorption excitonic states that quickly either localize to monomer-like states or goes into extrimeric states, which then later can relax to long-lived charge transfer states. Here, the most important SHARC features were the on-the-fly charge transfer analysis that is possible through the interface between SHARC and Theodore, and on the other hand, the module in SHARC that allows making such complicated kinetic model fits and fitting this to the data, and through analyzing the variance and the errors in these fitting constants can also tell us whether we have enough trajectories, whether the simulation time is long enough, and whether the kinetic model makes sense or not. In the third example, I want to talk quickly about explicit solvation of an iron complex, where the background is basically that in these 3D metal complexes, we have the general problem that after excitation, these initially excited charge transfer states are not long-lived because they're lower-lying metal-centered states. And for this metal complex that I show here, this iron complex, it was shown that it has a very strong dependence of the energies of my MLCT and MC states on the solvent environment, and therefore we studied the intersystem crossing and charge transfer dynamics in solution. Again, we ran the dynamic simulations, we extracted the population data in terms of singlet and triplet states, and also in terms of different charge transfer and local excitations, and could easily fit those data to mono-exponential models that allow us to extract time constants that can then again be compared to experiments. But what we can also do in this, what we also did in this project is have a very close look at the actual solvent dynamics by calculating the radial distribution functions between the iron complex and the surrounding water molecules. And we can see very nicely in this example that there are strong hydrogen bonds around the cyanide ligands of the complex. But after we do the excitation of the complex, suddenly these hydrogen bonds became much weaker, and we can easily follow the dynamics in time and make a fit and see that the solvent response is on a 100 femtosecond time scale. We can even go a step further and also simulate the angular resolve distribution in order to see how the solvent molecules are actually oriented around our complex. So yeah, in this project, it was about intersystem crossing and charge transfer dynamics and solvent effects, where again, we used the ultra-fast intersystem crossing feature in SHARC, charge transfer analysis, and also explicit solvation. In the last example that I want to show, I will talk about the little acetone molecule and the linear vibronic coupling model that allows to do very efficient dynamics. So here the background was that we were studying the population transfer between different, almost degenerate Rydberg states. And this was a collaboration work between experimental people from the TU Graz that measure time-resolved photoelectron spectra. And our project was using SHARC, where we simulate the dynamics after exciting to these three N3P states and how they decay to the pi star state of acetone. So we use this linear vibronic coupling model, which in very brief words is just using harmonic oscillators that we shift to different energetic positions based on the gradients that we can calculate for a reference position. And after we do this, we have this prototypical diabatic states that we can then couple through linear vibronic couplings, which allow us to get adiabatic states, which are the states that we can use for doing the dynamics. And when we use such an analytical model based on fitted parameters, we can get a speed up of 3 to 5 orders of magnitude versus doing ab initio dynamics with SHARC. And this extreme speed up allows us, of course, to get much better statistics. Of course, this analytical model has some limitations. It only works for rigid molecules on short time scales. And another disadvantage is that now the fake ab initio calculations, they're actually so fast that we needed to change completely the way how SHARC is communicating with the external electronic structure package. And that's why we developed the so-called PySHARC extension, which gives us one single executable, which includes the driver and the ab initio part, so that we can actually profit from this speedup. We simulated 3 different ensembles with each more than 1,000 trajectories. In one ensemble, we started in the N3px state, in the second one in the N3py state, and in the third one in the N3pz state. And then we applied a very complicated kinetic model through our population kinetics facility, which is almost fully connected with 4 kinetic species and 9 time constants in total. But because we have so many trajectories and these 3 independent ensembles, we have actually enough data to fit all these 9 rate or time constants with relatively small errors so that this is actually usable. And then based on these 9 rate constants, we can calculate the possible time constants that can be seen in the experiment and compare this for different excitation energies. And the agreement is pretty good, which tells us that this is not a bad approach to do. So here we saw that in acetone, we can excite through to different Rydberg states, and these different Rydberg states exchange population pretty quickly, but only one of these Rydberg states really decays quickly to the lower lying pi star state, which is related to the symmetry of the Rydberg state. And here I showed that this LVC SHARC feature allows for thousands of time constants, allows for thousands of trajectories with little computational cost. This entire project with 3,000 trajectories costed 600 CPU hours, which is essentially nothing. And using SHARC's population kinetic modeling, we can extract even such complicated models. So just a quick overview over what I showed you. I showed you 4 different examples that employ these different features of the SHARC package. But I actually didn't tell you everything, because in SHARC we have even more important things that will come up in the future or are already available, like neural network potential energy surfaces, the coherent switching with decay of mixing method by Don Truller for the coherence correction. QMMM will be in the future available through collaboration with the Cobram developers. We also work on an interface with the Quantix wave packet simulation tool. And as already discussed earlier by Felix Basser and Emmanuel Fromager, in SHARC there are also Dyson orbitals available. And with that, I want to thank you for your attention, and the full group